The great chamber of the Galactic Council was brighter than usual that day. Thousands of floating lights moved slowly above the enormous circular hall. Representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations filled the seats that surrounded the chamber. Some were tall and thin. Others were small and covered in scales or fur. A few did not even have bodies, appearing only as glowing energy forms inside transparent spheres. But despite their differences, every single one of them was watching the same thing. At the center of the chamber, a massive holographic display floated in the air. The image showed a human warship. The ship was enormous. Dark metal armor covered its long body. Rows of glowing engines burned bright blue at the rear. Along the sides were powerful railguns and missile launchers. The ship moved slowly across the screen, silent and calm. But everyone in the chamber knew what it was capable of. The human warships had changed the balance of power across the galaxy. For almost a century, humanity had been expanding beyond their small corner of space. At first, the other civilizations had not taken them seriously. Humans were young compared to the ancient empires that ruled the stars. But humans were different. They did not follow the same rules. Their engineers constantly improved their technology. Their commanders used strange and unpredictable battle strategies. And their shipbuilders created warships that looked simple but were extremely dangerous. Several powerful alien fleets had already learned this lesson the hard way. One by one, the holographic display began showing recordings of past battles. Human ships moving faster than expected. Human fleets using unusual formations. Human weapons striking targets with frightening accuracy. In every video, the result was the same. The enemy fleets were defeated. The chamber remained silent. Finally, the High Speaker of the Council slowly stood. The High Speaker was a tall silver-skinned being from one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. His long fingers rested calmly on the glowing control panel in front of him. When he spoke, his voice echoed across the massive chamber. Members of the Galactic Council, we are gathered here today to discuss the growing threat posed by humanity. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Some species shifted nervously. Others watched quietly. The High Speaker continued. For many years, humanity has been expanding its military presence across multiple systems. Their warships grow stronger every cycle. Their fleets grow larger. He paused and changed the holographic display. Now it showed a human shipyard orbiting a distant star. Hundreds of ships were being built at the same time. Many civilizations fear that if this growth continues, humanity may one day dominate the entire galaxy. More whispers spread across the hall. Some representatives nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Finally, the High Speaker raised his hand. The Council has prepared a solution. The chamber became silent again. We propose a new law. The hologram changed once more. This time the words of the law appeared in glowing blue letters. All human warships are now forbidden. A wave of reactions spread instantly. Some alien leaders looked relieved. Others looked shocked. The High Speaker continued speaking calmly. From this moment forward, humanity will not be allowed to build or operate military warships outside their home system. Any human vessel carrying heavy weapons will be considered illegal. He paused again before finishing the statement. Any illegal human warship discovered in galactic space will be destroyed immediately. The law had been spoken. For several seconds, no one said anything. Then slowly, one by one, the representatives began voting. Lights around the chamber started glowing. Green lights for approval. Red lights for rejection. Across the massive hall, green lights appeared everywhere. Within minutes, the result was clear. The law had passed. Human warships were now banned. Far away, on Earth, human leaders watched the broadcast quietly. Inside a large command center, several military officers stood around a holographic table. No one looked surprised. No one looked angry. They simply watched the final announcement. One officer slowly crossed his arms. So, that's their decision. Another officer nodded calmly. Yes. Silence filled the room for a moment. Finally, an older admiral spoke in a quiet voice. Well, if the galaxy doesn't want human warships. A small smile appeared on his face. Then we simply won't build warships. The officers around the table looked at him with interest. The admiral leaned forward slightly. But the law never said anything about civilian ships. Several people in the room suddenly understood what he meant. And slowly, they began to smile. Because while the galaxy believed they had just controlled humanity, humanity had already begun thinking of a new plan. After the law was passed, the news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every major star system received the same message from the Galactic Council. Human warships were now illegal. At first, many alien civilizations celebrated the decision. Large trade worlds held public broadcasts. Political leaders congratulated each other. Many believed the galaxy had just prevented a future war. For decades, human fleets had been the most unpredictable force in space. Their commanders did not fight the same way other species did. Their ships were built differently. Their tactics were strange, aggressive, and sometimes completely unexpected. To many civilizations, humans were becoming uncomfortable neighbors. So when the Council banned human warships, many believed peace had finally been secured. Across the galaxy, human fleets slowly disappeared. Warships returned to Earth and the nearby human systems. Patrol ships stopped guarding trade routes. Military fleets that once traveled through distant sectors suddenly vanished. For the first time in years, human ships were no longer seen across the galaxy. At first, everything seemed peaceful. Trade routes remained busy. Cargo convoys traveled between star systems without fear. Mining colonies continued their work in distant asteroid belts. Alien empires believed the problem had been solved. But space has always been dangerous. And without strong patrol fleets, the dangers slowly began to grow. The first attacks happened far from the major civilizations. Small cargo ships traveling through outer systems began disappearing. At first, most governments believed it was simply accidents or navigation errors. Space was vast, and ships were lost from time to time. But then the disappearances increased. Entire convoys vanished. Mining stations suddenly went silent. Deep space communication relays stopped responding. Soon, the truth became clear. Pirates had returned. For years, many pirate groups had stayed hidden because human patrol fleets were extremely aggressive. Human commanders hunted pirates without mercy. Their fast ships and advanced sensors made it difficult for criminals to survive for long. But now the human fleets were gone. And pirates had noticed. In the dark outer regions of the galaxy, pirate clans began rebuilding their strength. Old warships were repaired. Hidden bases were reopened. Criminal groups that had once feared human patrols now moved freely again. Soon, pirate attacks became common. Cargo ships were ambushed in deep space. Passenger transports were captured for ransom. Remote colonies were raided for resources. News reports about pirate activity began appearing across galactic networks. At first, the Galactic Council believed the situation could be controlled. They sent several official patrol fleets to protect the trade routes. But there was a problem. Most Council fleets were slow and traditional. Their commanders followed strict battle rules that had been used for centuries. They moved carefully and avoided unnecessary risks. Pirates quickly learned how to escape them. Whenever Council fleets entered a system, the pirates simply disappeared into deep space. When the fleets left, the attacks began again. Within 2 years, the situation had become much worse. Trade routes near the outer systems became extremely dangerous. Insurance companies raised prices for cargo shipments. Some trade companies completely stopped traveling through certain sectors. Entire colonies began asking the council for help. But the council fleets could not protect everyone. And there was one obvious solution that many leaders refused to consider. Human patrol fleets. For decades, humans had quietly protected many of the galaxy's trade routes. Their ships were fast, their sensors were advanced, and their commanders were willing to chase pirates across entire star systems. But the new law had made those fleets illegal. The council believed that allowing human warships again would give humanity too much power. So they refused. Even as pirate attacks continued to increase. Even as entire sectors of space became dangerous. The council continued to enforce the ban. But while the galaxy struggled with growing chaos, something interesting was happening in human space. On Earth and several nearby colonies, massive shipyards were still operating. Construction platforms orbited planets and stars. Hundreds of new ships were being built. But they were not labeled as warships. Every ship was officially classified as civilian. Cargo vessels. Mining transports. Exploration ships. Rescue ships. To the outside galaxy, it looked like humanity had simply focused on peaceful industries. But inside those shipyards, human engineers were quietly changing the design of every ship they built. The engines were stronger. The hulls were reinforced. The sensors were more powerful. And certain industrial tools were far more advanced than normal civilian equipment. The galaxy believed humanity had obeyed the law. And technically, they had. But humans had always been very good at one thing: finding creative ways around the rules. And soon, the galaxy would realize something important. Humanity had not lost its power. It had simply changed the game. While the rest of the galaxy argued about laws and struggled with growing pirate attacks, humanity remained strangely calm. Human news channels rarely mentioned the chaos spreading across the outer systems. Human governments did not complain about the ban on warships. Human diplomats did not argue with the Galactic Council. From the outside, it looked like humanity had accepted its situation. But inside human space, something very different was happening. Deep within the orbit of Earth, enormous construction platforms floated above the planet like small cities made of metal. Thousands of workers, robots, and automated machines moved constantly between unfinished ships. These were not military shipyards anymore. At least, not officially. Every vessel being built was listed under civilian registration. Cargo transports. Mining carriers. Long-range exploration vessels. Emergency rescue ships. On paper, these ships were completely peaceful. But human engineers had always believed something important about technology. A tool could have more than one purpose. And that idea was quietly shaping every new ship. Cargo vessels were designed with extremely powerful engines so they could carry heavy loads across long distances. But those engines also made the ships incredibly fast. Mining ships were equipped with massive industrial cutting lasers used to break apart asteroids. But those same lasers could easily slice through metal hulls. Rescue ships were built with thick armor and strong shield systems to survive dangerous disasters in space. And exploration ships carried the most advanced sensor systems humanity had ever created. Each design had a simple explanation. Each ship was completely legal. Because none of them were warships. Human engineers followed the Council's law very carefully. But they also studied every word of it. The law banned warships. It banned military fleets. It banned ships that were officially designed for combat. But it never said anything about civilian ships defending themselves. Inside one of the large orbital shipyards, a group of engineers stood inside a bright control room overlooking the construction docks. Through the wide observation window, dozens of new ships floated slowly as robotic arms attached final pieces to their hulls. One of the younger engineers studied the ships carefully. "They really believe we gave up," she said quietly. An older engineer beside her smiled slightly. "They believe we stopped building power," he replied. He pointed toward the massive cargo vessel being assembled below. The ship was huge. Long rows of cargo containers lined its body, and 4 powerful engines glowed softly at the rear. Officially, the older engineer continued, "That ship is designed to transport mining equipment." The younger engineer crossed her arms. "And unofficially?" The older engineer looked at the glowing industrial lasers mounted near the front. "Unofficially," he said calmly, "those mining lasers can cut through pirate ships in seconds." The younger engineer smiled. Across human space, similar conversations were happening everywhere. Shipbuilders were not building weapons. They were building tools. Powerful tools. Tools that could mine asteroids, repair damaged stations, explore unknown systems. And if necessary, defend themselves. Soon, hundreds of these ships began leaving human shipyards. Convoys of civilian vessels traveled through human territory carrying cargo, supplies, and equipment. At first, the galaxy paid little attention. After all, cargo ships were normal. Trade vessels moved through space every day. But pirates were watching. In the outer systems, pirate fleets had grown bold. They attacked anything that looked valuable, especially slow cargo transports. One day, a pirate scouting ship detected a small convoy moving through a quiet sector. 5 large human cargo ships. No visible weapons. No escort. To the pirates, it looked like an easy target. The pirate captain grinned as his ship followed the convoy. "Human cargo ships," he said with confidence. "Looks like we found ourselves a profitable day." His fleet of small attack ships quickly moved into position. The pirates surrounded the convoy. Weapons powered up. Missile locks activated. Everything looked normal. Until the human ships suddenly changed formation. The cargo vessels moved closer together. Their engines brightened. And strange mechanical structures began unfolding from their hulls. Large industrial lasers slowly rotated into position. Defensive shields powered up around the convoy. The pirates froze in confusion. Those were not weapons, were they? Then the first laser fired. A bright beam of light cut across space. One pirate ship disappeared in a flash of metal and fire. The rest of the pirate fleet realized their mistake too late. The convoy they had attacked was not helpless. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, the pirate ships were gone. And the 5 cargo vessels calmly continued their journey through space. Technically, they had done nothing illegal. They were simply defending themselves. And slowly, across the galaxy, similar stories began to appear. Pirates attacking human cargo ships, and losing. Mining vessels destroying pirate ambushes. Exploration ships escaping traps with impossible speed. At first, many civilizations did not believe the reports. But as more and more incidents happened, the truth became impossible to ignore. Human warships were gone. But somehow, human ships were still winning every fight. And the galaxy had no idea how humanity had done it. For a while, most of the galaxy ignored the strange stories about human ships defeating pirates. Many alien governments believed the reports were exaggerated. Some thought pirates were simply weak or poorly organized. But then a battle happened that no one could ignore. It began near a busy trade station called Helios Gate, located at the edge of the outer systems. The station was important because dozens of trade routes passed through it every day. Cargo ships from many civilizations stopped there to refuel and exchange goods. Because of the increasing pirate attacks, the station had already requested help from the Galactic Council. Unfortunately, the nearest council fleet was several days away. That delay gave the pirates a perfect opportunity. Late one night cycle, long-range sensors detected dozens of unknown ships approaching the station. Within minutes the alarm sounded across Helios Gate. A massive pirate fleet had arrived. More than 50 pirate warships surrounded the station from every direction. Their engines glowed red in the darkness of space as they moved into attack positions. Inside the station, fear spread quickly. The station had only a few defense cannons and a handful of security ships. They were not strong enough to fight a fleet that large. The pirates sent a simple message. Surrender the station and your cargo, or be destroyed. The station commander knew resistance would not last long. He ordered civilians to hide in protected areas while the station prepared for the worst. But just as the pirates began moving closer, another group of ships appeared on the sensors. 20 vessels entering the system. Human ships. A cargo convoy traveling along the trade route. When the pirate captains saw them, many of them laughed. To them, these ships looked harmless. Long cargo containers were attached to their hulls, and their designs clearly matched the civilian transports humans had been using since the warship ban. The pirates believed the convoy had simply arrived at the wrong time. They decided to destroy the human ships first. Several pirate warships turned and rushed toward the convoy, firing missiles as they approached. For a moment, everything looked predictable. Then the human ships suddenly moved. The convoy shifted into a tight formation. Engines burned bright blue as the vessels accelerated together. Shields activated around their hulls, glowing faintly across the dark metal surfaces. Then something unexpected happened. Large mechanical panels opened along the sides of the cargo ships. Industrial mining lasers slowly rotated outward. The pirates hesitated. Those were supposed to be tools. But the moment the first beam fired, the truth became clear. A bright blue laser cut across space and sliced directly through a pirate ship's engine section. The ship exploded instantly. The human convoy moved with perfect coordination. Cargo ships rotated smoothly, covering each other while their shields absorbed incoming fire. Mining lasers fired again and again. Within minutes, pirate ships began disappearing. Missiles exploded harmlessly against reinforced hulls. Smaller pirate fighters were destroyed before they could even reach attack range. The battle was short. 10 minutes later, the pirate fleet was gone. Only broken debris remained drifting through space. The human convoy slowly returned to normal formation and continued toward the station. Inside Helios Gate, thousands of witnesses had watched the entire battle through external cameras. The recordings were immediately transmitted across the galactic network. Within hours, the footage reached the Galactic Council. And once again, the Great Council chamber fell silent. Because the truth was now impossible to ignore. Humanity had obeyed the law. They had not built warships. But somehow, they had still created the most effective combat fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The recording from Helios Gate spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours, millions of ships, stations, and colonies had watched the same battle footage. Every angle of the fight was analyzed. Every movement of the human ships was studied carefully. And the conclusion shocked everyone. Humanity had not broken the law. The ships that destroyed the pirate fleet were officially registered as civilian vessels. Cargo transports. Mining ships. Rescue support craft. They carried no officially declared weapons. They were not classified as warships. And yet they had defeated a fleet of 50 pirate vessels in only a few minutes. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the same video played again on the massive holographic screen. Alien representatives watched silently. The High Speaker stood at the center of the chamber, his silver skin reflecting the blue light from the recording. The battle ended once more. For several seconds, the chamber remained completely quiet. Finally, one representative spoke. But, those ships fought like a military fleet. Another ambassador leaned forward. They used mining lasers. A third voice responded from the opposite side of the chamber. Mining lasers are legal industrial tools. More voices joined the discussion. They use defensive shields. Civilian rescue ships also use shields. They moved in coordinated formations. Civilian convoys can legally coordinate for safety. Every argument slowly collapsed. Humanity had followed every rule. The law had banned warships. But no one had imagined humans would turn civilian technology into something so powerful. The High Speaker raised his hand for silence. There is only one clear fact, he said calmly. Humanity has not violated the law. The chamber became quiet again. But, he continued slowly, they have clearly adapted to it. Far away in human space, the news from Helios Gate was received with quiet satisfaction. Inside Earth's main orbital command station, several officers watched the council debate through a holographic broadcast. One younger officer shook his head with a small smile. They're still trying to understand what happened. An older admiral leaned back in his chair. That's because they believe power only comes from weapons. He pointed toward the recording of the battle. But power comes from creativity. Another officer looked at the screen thoughtfully. So what happens now? The admiral gave a small shrug. Nothing. The officers looked surprised. Nothing, one asked. The admiral nodded calmly. We followed their rules. He folded his arms. If they change the law again, we'll simply adapt again. Days passed after the battle. Across the galaxy, trade companies began making new decisions. Many cargo corporations started requesting human escorts for their convoys. Not because humans were the strongest military power. But because human ships were unpredictable. Pirates quickly learned an important lesson. Attacking human convoys was a terrible idea. Soon, pirate activity began dropping across several sectors. Trade routes slowly became safer again. Even alien governments quietly began hiring human civilian fleets to patrol dangerous systems. Officially, they were just trade convoys. Unofficially, everyone understood the truth. Human ships were protecting half the galaxy. And technically, they were still completely legal. Weeks later, during another council meeting, an elderly ambassador from a distant star system finally said what everyone had been thinking. Humanity did not break our law. He paused and looked around the silent chamber. They simply proved our law was useless. No one argued. Because deep down, every civilization now understood something important. You could try to limit humanity. You could try to control them. But humans had always been extremely good at solving problems. And if someone tried to restrict them, they would simply find a smarter way forward. Because in the end, humanity had not won by breaking the rules. They had won by rewriting them.